Welcome to Do the Math America. I am Charlene, Math Shaman. This is Lesson 58, Circumference and Area of Circle. I work out of the New Elementary Mathematics Syllabus D textbook. Please use the link in the description box below this video to find a copy of this textbook. You can order it from singaporemath.com. This lesson covers pages 339 to 342 of the textbook. I will be animating the lesson and the examples for you. In my most recent videos, I discussed area and perimeter of polygons. The circumference of a circle is equivalent to the perimeter around a polygon. That is, it is the distance around the circle. This figure shows a circle with center O. The line segment AB passing through O is the diameter of the circle. So the diameter is the length of the circle passing through its center. From the center to any point on the circle is called the radius of the circle. So as you can see, the radius is half the length of the circle. That is, the radius is half the length of the diameter, and the diameter is 2 times the length of the radius, all passing through the center of the circle. Notice that segment AB, which passes through the center of the circle at O, divides the circle into halves, and each half is known as a semicircle. The distance around the circle is called the circumference of the circle. It can also be referred to as the length around the circle. So as I mentioned before, the circumference of a circle is equivalent to the perimeter of a polygon. If you measure the diameter and circumference of any circular object, you will find that the quotient, circumference divided by diameter, is about 3. Another way to look at that is that the ratio of circumference to diameter is about 3. That is, the circumference is about 3 times the diameter. The ratio of circumference to diameter of any circle is a constant. That is, it is the same for all circles, and we call that constant pi. The Greek symbol is pi as written, and it's pronounced pi. And the value of pi is 3.14159, etc., etc. Pi is an irrational number, and it goes on indefinitely. Pi is the constant we use to calculate the area and circumference of a circle. And when we use pi in our calculations, depending on the accuracy required for the calculation, we may use just 3.14 or 3.142 or 22/7. The formula for the circumference of a circle is 2 times pi times r. R is the radius of the circle. And however we measure the radius of the circles, whether it is in feet, inches, meters, kilometers, etc., the units of that radius provides the unit for the circumference. This figure shows that if we divide a circle of radius r into 16 equal parts and rearrange them as shown, the new figure obtained will look like a parallelogram. And if we divide that same circle into 32 equal parts and reassemble, the new figure formed will look more like a rectangle. If we repeat this process by dividing the circle into more and more equal parts, the figure formed will be more and more like a rectangle. So the circumference of any circle is 2 pi r. And the length of this rectangle, which was formed by the cut up circle, would be 1/2 of 2 pi r, because it's half of the circumference of the circle. 1/2 of 2 pi r would just be pi times r. So the length of this rectangle would be pi times r. And meanwhile, the width of this rectangle would be r, or the radius. And if you recall, the area of a rectangle is the length times its width. So if we take the length of this circle formed into a rectangle as pi times r, and its width is r, then when you multiply that together, the area of this rectangle would be pi r square. So the area of this circle that was cut into equal parts and reassembled into a rectangle would be pi r square, which is the area of a circle. So this is a formula worth memorizing. The area of a circle equals pi r square. Okay, let's solve some problems. Using 3.14 for pi, find the circumference and the area of a circle with radius 5.4 centimeters. Give your answers correct to 1 decimal place. So the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. In this case, we use 3.14 for pi. So we have 2 times 3.14 times 5.4 centimeters. I first multiply 3.14 times 5.4 on the side. If you need a refresher on how to multiply decimals, please watch my earlier video, Lesson 17, Multiplying Decimals. The benefit of doing these calculations by hand instead of reaching for a calculator is that you reinforce these skills. 3.14 times 5.4 equals 16.956, and I will round that up to 16.96 and multiply by 2. Since the problem instructs us to give correct answers to 1 decimal place, for our intermediary calculations, we should include an additional decimal place to increase precision when we round to the final answer. So the circumference of a circle with radius 5.4 centimeters is 33.9 centimeters. We box our answer. Next, we calculate the area of the circle with radius 5.4 centimeters. So the area of the circle has the formula of pi r square. So on the next line, I fill in 3.14 for pi, and r, the radius, would be 5.4 centimeters square. I put 5.4 centimeters inside the parentheses and square that. From order of operations, we remember that we must do exponents before we multiply. So first we multiply 5.4 times 5.4 to calculate 5.4 square. 5.4 square works out to be 29.16, and I write that on the next line and multiply by 3.14. The unit centimeter is also squared. And my next calculation is 29.16 times 3.14. I do that calculation on the side, away from the main body of the problem. Doing so allows you to keep track of what calculations you've already completed and what calculations still need to be completed. In real life, I would not erase previous calculations, I would keep track of them so that I could double check my answers. Always get into the habit of double checking your calculations. If you ever run a business or go into the trades or become an engineer, it's good to double check your figures. You can see from these larger calculations how important it is to keep plenty of space between your digits and to line up your columns nice and straight so that you can make sure you are multiplying and adding the correct digits. So 3.14 times 29.16 centimeters square works out to be 91.5624, which I round up to be 91.6 centimeters square. Correct to one decimal place, I box my answer. Find the radius of a circle, A, if its circumference is 176 units. So the formula for circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. And we are to use 22/7 as pi. So I write the equation as 176 units, which is the circumference given, equals 2 times 22/7 times r, so that I could solve for the radius. So I start by multiplying the fraction 22/7 times 2, which is 44/7, and I rewrite that on the next line, times r equals 176. Now I multiply the right-hand side of the equation with the reciprocal of 44/7, which is 7 over 44. And whatever I do on one side of the equation, I balance by doing on the other side. So the left-hand side of the equation is also multiplied by 7 over 44. On the right-hand side of the equation, 44/7 times 7 over 44 multiply to be 1. 1 times r is r by itself. On the left-hand side of the equation, I will simplify 7/44 times 176. I begin by factoring out 176 using the shortcut division method. If you are unfamiliar with the shortcut division method, please watch my earlier video, lesson 22 on prime factorization. As I was pulling out the prime factors for 176, I see that I get 2 times 2 times 44, so I will stop the shortcut division at this point. I can use 44 as a common factor with 7 over 44. So 176 equals 4 times 44. And I notice that I have written that incorrectly in green. I will correct that. So on the next line of the equation, I write 7 over 44 times 4 times 44. And again, I've written it incorrectly on the equation. I will correct that as well. Error is human, so please keep a lookout for the mistakes that you will inevitably make when you are doing calculations. Now I've made my corrections on the left-hand side of the equation. I have 7 over 44 times 4 times 44. And the 44 in the numerator cancels with the 44 in the denominator, leaving 7 times 4, which equals 28. So 28 equals r, or the radius equals 28 units. Radius equals 28 units. I box my answer. Now I will clear my screen so that I can do part B of the problem. So B, find the radius of a circle if its area is 2,464 square units, taking pi as 22/7. So the formula for area of a circle is pi r square. Always begin your calculations by writing down the appropriate formulas. Now I'm ready to plug in 2,464 square units for the area. So 2,464 square units equals pi, which is 22/7, times r square. And we will be solving for the radius, r. To solve for r, I will begin by multiplying the right-hand side of the equation with the reciprocal of 22/7, which is 7/22. And whatever I do on one side of the equation, I must balance by doing on the other side. So on the left-hand side, I multiply 2,464 also with 7/22. The right-hand side of the equation, the reciprocals multiply to cancel out, leaving r square by itself. Write equal r square on the line below. On the left-hand side of the equation, I have 7/22 times 2,464, and I begin by factoring out 2,464 using the shortcut division method. So by factoring out 2,464, pulling out all the prime factors, I end up with 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 7 times 11. That's 2 to the 5th power times 7 times 11. And I will write down all those factors on the line below, making sure I don't leave out any of those factors. So I include all 5 2's that need to be multiplied times 7 times 11. And for the fraction 7/22, I also factor out the prime factors of 22. And I use the shortcut division for pulling out prime factors for 22 on the side. So 22 factors out to be 2 times 11. And I write that as the denominator for 22. So now I'm ready to cancel like factors from the numerator to the denominator. And that calculation simplifies to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 7 times 7. So 2 to the 4th times 7 to the 2nd power equals r square. And now I am ready to simplify for r by taking the square root of both sides of the equation. Before I do, though, I will shift this equation one line down so that I have more room to do my work. So I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 4 times 7 times 7 equals r square. And I draw the square root sign over all of those factors on both sides of the equation. So on the right-hand side, the square root of r square is just r by itself. And on the left-hand side, I pull out the factors that have been squared to end up with 2 times 2 times 7, or 4 times 7, which equals 28. So our radius equals 28 units. So I write radius equals 28 units, and I box my answer. As I'm doing the voiceover for this video, I see that I have made a mistake. I wrote radius equals 28 units square, and that is incorrect. Radius is always in singular units, not square units. So I will cross out that square and make it just 28 units. This is what my math teachers used to call a silly error, as opposed to a logical or error in mathematical thinking, but it's the wrong answer just the same. The radius of a wheel of a bicycle is 25.5 centimeters. How many revolutions must it make to cover a distance of 40 meters? Give your answer correct to the nearest whole number. Take pi equals 3.142. And here I draw a picture of a wheel, it always helps to draw a picture of the problem. It helps you think through how to solve it. And this wheel has a radius of 25.5 centimeters, and we need that wheel to roll a distance of 40 meters. So the distance it would cover in one rotation would be the circumference of the wheel. And the formula for circumference we write down as 2 pi r. Always write your formulas before you begin your problem. So the circumference equals 2 pi r, and we just need to plug in the numbers for pi, which is 3.142, and for the radius, which is 25.5 centimeters, as given. Since this is a problem involving only multiplication, multiplication adheres to the associative property, meaning it doesn't matter which numbers you multiply first, you will get the same answer. I will multiply the second two numbers first, because I like to work with the more difficult numbers first, and I will do that calculation on the side. So I have 3.142 times 25.5 centimeters. For a refresher on how to multiply decimals, please watch my earlier video, Lesson 17, Multiplying Decimals. So I multiply each digit, being careful to write the numbers without crowding, lining up each of the numbers in columns. I get 3.142 times 25.5 equals 80.121. I write that on the line below, bringing down the 2 that needs to be multiplied with it as well. So now I do 2 times 80.121, and I write that calculation on the side. If you want to get good at math, you must reinforce these skills doing these calculations by hand. Plugging these numbers into a calculator will give you fast, accurate answers as long as you plug in the correct numbers, but doing so does not give you a deeper number sense. So the circumference of this wheel works out to be 160.24 centimeters, and I round the number to the second decimal point to give me a more accurate answer for the final calculation. The third decimal point is unnecessary. The problem asks for the correct answer to the nearest whole number. So now I must figure out how many times does the wheel need to rotate to reach a distance of 40 meters, and I try to draw that picture out so that I can envision that process. And I see that I need to divide 40 meters by 160.24 centimeters to find the number of rotations needed to cover that distance. So first I need to convert 40 meters to centimeters. 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. So 40 meters would equal 40 times 100 centimeters. 40 times 100 equals 4,000. So 40 meters equals 4,000 centimeters. Now I am ready to do the division. 4,000 centimeters divided by 160.24 centimeters to find the number of revolutions that the wheel must make. So I write the equation, number of revolutions equals 4,000 centimeters divided by 160 centimeters. Start by crossing off the 0 in the numerator with the 0 in the denominator. Those zeros cancel each other out, and now I have 400 divided by 16. I will approach this as a fraction to be made in its simplest form, so I do the shortcut division method to pull out all the prime factors of the numerator, 400, and I get 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5 times 5. Next, I do the same process, shortcut division, for the denominator, 16, and I get 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So the numerator, 400, is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the fourth power, times 5, or 5 to the second power, over the denominator, 16, which is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And now I cancel like factors from the numerator to the denominator and end with 5 times 5 in the numerator, which equals 25. So the number of revolutions that the wheel of the bicycle must make to cover 40 meters is 25 revolutions, and I box my answer. The practice problems for this lesson are found on pages 341 and 342 of the textbook. Please do as many problems as you need to get a firm grasp of this material. And please make note that it should be unnecessary to use a calculator for these problems. The answers for this problem set are found on pages 436 of this book. Please check your answers to make sure you did the problems correctly. I hope this video was helpful to you. And if it was, please give me a like, subscribe, and share this channel with anyone you know who wants to learn math. Thank you for joining me at Do the Math America.